Soda woke up in another world as a level 1 drop item from a slime. All his stats are F, but he has a godlike power of S-rank drop rate. Soda found himself in a strange and unfamiliar place after hearing a game-like sound. Meanwhile, Emily Brown had her own surprise when a slime blob she just killed unexpectedly dropped Soda. She was confused because Soda looked like a human, but since he was a drop from killing a slime, she thought he was a piece of meat. She decided to cut him up, but Soda got up, scaring her. The girl jumped back, questioning if he was really a human. It seemed pretty obvious, but the girl couldn't understand why he appeared after she killed a slime. Now both are confused because Soda couldn't understand how he dropped from a slime. The girl calls it unexpected because slimes usually drop bean sprouts. Soda thinks she's crazy and tries to get some answers, asking about slimes and drops. The girl is confused as if Soda was questioning common sense. She tells him to follow and watch what she does. He does as asked and sees a level 1 slime in the room. The girl charges forward, takes a hit that loses half her HP, and smashes the slime down. He claps for her performance, wishing to clap something else, and poof, the slime disappears and drops a few bean sprouts. She explains that the slimes on level 1 of Talula dungeon floor drop bean sprouts. It's common knowledge, she says, but not for Soda. He looks around and starts to freak out, confused. He asks if that's how bean sprouts are made. She replies with yes, pretty much everything. He gets confused with the everything part, and she clarifies that in this world, everything is a dungeon monster drop. He's confused but decides to follow and ask her stuff. First, he questions if he's still in Japan or on Earth, but the girl doesn't understand his questions and ignores him. The girl continues moving forward and killing more slimes for bean sprouts, so he decides to ask why she isn't looking for other monsters. She explains that only slimes exist on the first level of this dungeon. He questions about going to level 2 or above, and she reveals she's weak and needs to level up. He is impressed that people can level up, but at this point, any dumbass knows they're in another world if they see a slime. Not Soda, though. The girl shows him a frame in the dungeon walls, explaining it to be a status board. If he touches it, he can see his stats rated from F to A. He realizes that it seems like a game and how the stats are rated. He then notices there's a second page. She explains that it's a drop stat page. This is the part he gets confused. What does it mean when the stats are high? She explains that high stats make it easier to get drops and increase the drop quantity. She claims to have a high plant drop rate, which is irrated high as hell, and that's why she's getting bean sprouts. He decides to check his stats just to find out that he should be ashamed to be in another world. His max level is 1, and all his stats are F. She clarifies his max level, which is obvious as hell, and they decide to check his second page. Well, she can only describe it as sad. He loses all his motivation to live here while the girl is counting the alphabet. Apparently this girl doesn't know that S-rated stats are actually the highest, and that's all his drop rate stats. He thinks it may be different here and decides to try it out. He looks around for a weapon, and the girl lets him use her hammer. Turns out she probably stole it from Thor. He almost breaks his arm while dropping it to the floor because it's too heavy. The girl apologizes and gives him a bamboo spear. They then notice a slime heading toward them, and Soda tries to deal with it. He manages to land a hit after some tries, and the drop is crazy. It's a huge amount of bean sprouts. He realizes it was a lot more than what Emily had ever seen before. He then realizes that he was right, S is above A. He asks if she has ever seen someone with an S stat, but she replies that they don't exist. Since both are feeling hungry, the girl makes a bean sprout soup to enjoy, but when Soda tries it, tears start falling from his eyes. The girl panics, thinking it tastes bad, but he explains that it's been a long time since he could enjoy a warm meal with someone else. He starts to remember his life as an office worker. He always worked extra unpaid hours and ate only cold stuff from a store. In the end, his health got ruined, and he ended up in the hospital. He tried to compensate by working even harder and ended up taking a nap at work, and then he woke up in a different world after becoming a slime drop item. He tears down, realizing that he worked for nothing, and that his life was hell. The girl tries to comfort him, telling him that his efforts will always pay off if he works hard, and the longer it takes, the bigger the reward. The girl then mentions that the best way to do it is to work hard and then be rewarded when they are reborn in their next life. Sota thanks her for comforting him and decides to stay positive in this life. He wants to find a place to stay, and the girl mentions the town right outside the dungeon. She then mentions that he should go now because she's about to also go to sleep. He's confused and asks if she's going to sleep inside the dungeon. She explains that she doesn't have money to rent an inn room because her drop rate is low. So she sleeps inside the dungeon, but she dreams that one day she could have an apartment. Sota gets up, ready to leave, and she hands him the bamboo spear. He needs something to defend himself, and if he needs to find her in the future, then he can come to the level 1 dungeon. He asks her name, and she replies that she's Emily. Sota moves to the city and starts to understand the basics of this world. The currency is pilos, and the sprouts that he got from the slime are worth 200 pilots. Renting a room costs 2,000 pilots per night, and a dish similar to ramen is 500 pilots. He checks the prices of everything he wants and then goes inside the dungeon. He kills several slimes, realizing how lucky he is when he realized that he was permanently level 1. He thought that he was living in hell again, but the drop rate stat is so overpowered that it compensates for it. After 3 days, he comes back to Emily and takes her to an old house. She's confused, but he explains that he rented it for 20,000 pilots a month, the amount he earned in the last few days. She looks around, finding that it's an amazing place, but he suddenly hands her the house key. She doesn't understand what's going on, but he tells her that this is her new house, and he will be covering her rent. The girl claims she cannot accept it, but he tells it's his repayment for the soup. He thanks her again for the warm, delicious soup. The girl almost tears down with those words and accepts living there. She notices the injuries on his hands, and he explains he's been fighting non-stop. She then makes her decision. She says that she will be making soup for the rest of her life and wants him to enjoy it with her. He then realizes she's asking him to live with her and accepts the deal. From then on, Sota continues his routine of killing slimes and selling the bean sprouts, but the price isn't that great. He only gets about 2,000 pilots. He considers going to the second level and finds out that it drops carrots. The receptionist named Urza talks about a new dungeon that appeared recently. She explains that sometimes dungeons appear and disappear out of nowhere and that there's a group investigating the drop items. Sota then says goodbye to her, and she takes the chance to ask if he wants to have a drink with her. As you expect, he says not this time. He heads back home to Emily, who's happily welcoming him back. He's impressed that she managed to clear everything, and now it looks like a real house. The best part is that Emily acts like his wife. She gives him a hot towel to relax, tea, and prepared dinner. He tells her to relax and have some rest, but she's a hyped-up bunny. She's loving the feeling of living in her house and doing all kinds of things. He talks about the new dungeon, but she says that apparently, there are no drop items there. He gets curious about it because everything in this world comes from a dungeon drop item, so having a dungeon without drops seems strange. He decides to explore it, surprised that nobody is there. He guesses that maybe it doesn't drop anything at all. Suddenly, a skeleton appears and tries to attack him. He dodges it by not moving at all and stabs it with his bamboo spear. Of course, it gets stuck in the skeleton's rib cage, and when he thinks that he's about to die, a stone pillar falls on top of the skeleton. With the skeleton restrained, Sota takes the chance to destroy the skull. The monster disappears, and Sota notices a seed on the floor. He picks it up, and when it disappears, suddenly Sota hears a message mentioning that his max health points have been increased by 1. He goes back to the level 1 dungeon with Emily to check his stats, and she cannot believe his level is still stuck, but his health stat increased from F to C. He was surprised that the seed effect was real and decided to kill more skeletons. Emily joined him, and they managed to learn about how it works. When Emily defeats a skeleton, the seed didn't drop, plus she cannot pick up one of the seeds that dropped from Sota's kills. Emily can barely believe this is possible because you can usually pick up other people's drops, but she's still hyped up because this is also the first time someone gets stronger without leveling up. Sota decides that he will continue farming the dungeon until all his health stat reaches S. When he manages to, he tells Emily that he was going to the level 2 dungeon to find out how strong he is, but Emily is making a strange sad face. She reveals that she's worried about him. He worked to exhaustion to rent a house for her, and then after finding the new dungeon, he's been farming all night. She tells him to come back at night and rest at home instead of being reckless. Soda remembers that in his past life, he didn't have anyone who worried about him, but he now has Emily. So he promises to come back early. He goes to the level 2 dungeon and gets hit by a slime, but he only took just a small amount of damage. After getting hit a few times, he manages to kill the slime, and as previously mentioned, it drops a carrot, a huge carrot. Another slime appears, and when it's almost getting close to Soda, it's hit by a fireball. A trio of guys who need a nice punch appears and starts mocking him after finding out Soda is level 1. I guess they forgot to compare carrot sizes because Soda is bigger. Urza also says that Eve is a carrot gourmet, and that her catchphrase, dead or carrot, comes from killing people who gave her low-ranked carrots. And since you've approved Soda's S-ranked carrot, then every carrot he drops will be considered a high-quality product that will be sold for a higher price. He usually got 8,000 pilots per carrot, but now he gets 15,000. He usually drops 30 carrots per day, so that's basically 4,450,000 a month. He tries to thank Eve for approving his carrot, but she's already down on her knees, asking for more carrots instead. Soda says that he will get her more carrots tomorrow, and Eve replies that she hates him. She tries to karate chop him, but he simply grabs her hand. He manages to convince her that he will get her more carrots tomorrow, and she leaves. The next day, Soda and Emily manage to get a bag full of carrots from the dungeon. He tells her that he will just take a quick look around the dungeon, and he ends up seeing 2 adventurers fighting a slime. He realizes that they're clearly exhausted from overworking and can barely stand up. Their leader appears, and the 2 hold the slime in place for the leader to defeat it. The leader wants to continue hunting, and the 2 ask for a little rest because they haven't done it in the past 2 days. The old man calls them weak and spouts out random stuff about how when he was young, he could spend weeks inside the dungeon without resting, and that's how he got strong. It's clearly BS, he's just exploiting young newbie adventurers. The newbies explain they haven't slept, but the old man says that this is helping them get stronger. The 2 are literally being brainwashed and believe in his random BS. They get up and continue while Soda thinks this is the same situation he was in his previous life. His boss would give him impossible tasks and said it was for their own sakes, but in reality, they were being exploited. Emily approaches Soda from behind and asks if he's fine. He dismisses it, and she tells him to take a break to eat lunch. Everything looks great until they hear footsteps. It's Eve running toward them because she wants to eat Emily's lunch. They all share the meal and relax for a bit until the old exploiter appears and comments that Soda's group is a bunch of slackers. He tells the newbies not to become like them, and, of course, he's just increasing the brainwashing level. He says that if they're lazy like Soda, their drops will be of low quality. Eve simply cuts a carrot in half and throws it into the newbies' mouths, and, of course, the 2 love it. The old man tries to confront Eve, but he's too weak to deal with her, so he decides to leave with his pets. She returns to Soda and Emily and continues to eat her carrot. Soda thanks her for her help, but she simply karate chops him while saying that she wants carrots every day. Soda and Emily return to the commercial center to sell their carrots. Soda mentions they had many more carrots, but they couldn't carry them all. Urza asks if they didn't have a magic cart. Emily points toward one, and Urza explains that he can carry more items with a magic cart, thus improving his efficiency. He decides to buy one, and Urza tells him where the store was. They step inside and ask where the little girl's parents are. She says that her father is modding in the back. She calls her father, who welcomes them. Soda tells the man that he wants a magic cart, and the man gives him his recommendation, which costs 10 million pilos. Soda and Emily cannot believe how expensive it is. The man says that they can buy a normal one for 2 or 3 million, but they're plain. The guy loves to mod and makes expensive carts that come with amazing features like a monster detection system. Soda realizes he cannot afford a cart right now and must save their money for a while. They head back home until they suddenly hear a guy shouting on the street. They hear that a stray is coming, and Soda asks Emily what that is. She explains that it's a monster created from drops. They can only happen if you leave the drop behind without any human around. Turns out this stray is literally King Kong. The adventurers start running away to evacuate the city, something Soda doesn't understand. Emily explains that nobody wants to deal with strays because they're stronger than normal monsters, plus they don't drop any items. Soda notices the magic cart seller and his daughter are also running away. The seller tells that Soda should also run away, but Soda suddenly hears a scream. Eve trips when she tries to run away, and King Kong is approaching her. King Kong tries to punch her, but Soda uses his strength to block the attack. Emily and her group come to help deal with King Kong, and Sato helps Urza get up. She's okay, but the city is being destroyed. Soda then decides that he will kill King Kong because he doesn't want the city to be completely destroyed. Emily is also ready to help him, and the two get ready to act. Soda asks Eve's group to keep King Kong in place, but they don't believe he can deal with it. King Kong picks up a boulder to throw at Soda, but Emily blocks it with her stolen Thor's hammer. Even her group manage to block and restrain King Kong's movements, enabling Soda to headbutt the giant gorilla and becomes the new king by punching and destroying the colossal beast. The locals thank Soda for protecting their city and saving their lives. Soda feels satisfied because nobody ever praised him for anything he did in his previous life. Suddenly, he hears a drop sound. He's confused because Emily said strays don't drop items, but at the same time, he remembers that the other dungeon shouldn't be supposed to drop anything, but it drops seeds. He gets close to a light and is shocked to see a super rare drop item. The drop item turns out to be a gun and bullets from Soda's real world. He picks it up and questions how he got a weapon that shouldn't exist in that world, plus he got it from a monster that shouldn't drop anything. He decides to use it and goes to the Nohonium dungeon. He first checks his stats. Everything is still NF except for his C strength and S rank health. His max level is still 1, but at least he's improving. While in this dungeon, he returns to the second floor to test if his gun works. He senses a zombie approaching him and shoots it. He finds it amazing that it works on monsters just like it should. More zombies appear, but Soda's aiming skills are still trash. He either misses his shots or barely kills the zombies until he notices that there's a small problem: he doesn't know how to get more bullets. He reloads the gun and wonders if they will drop from strays too, but since he doesn't know yet, he cannot pretend to be Rambo and waste them. He returns to the slime dungeon with Emily, but the slime evades Emily's attack. Luckily, Soda manages to hit the slime instead of the girl. They take a quick break, and Emily says that his weapon is pretty amazing despite never seeing one before. Soda explains that it helps him a lot and he upgraded his strength to rank B because of it. He asks if she wants to check the third floor after their meal, and she agrees. Soda thinks that he can go to other places once he gets enough stats and finds this life pretty relaxing. But they now need to move to the third floor. They ask if Emily has ever been there, and she replies no, she only knows the names of the monsters and what they drop. They will be fighting cocker slimes to get pumpkins. Soda is annoyed to fight slimes, but he's anticipating Emily's new meals. They move forward, and turns out the slimes are cockroaches. Soda finds it disgusting and mentions that girls would run away screaming. Suddenly, he hears a loud noise. He looks behind to see that Emily just smashed her hammer on the ground. He tells her that she doesn't need to go that hard, but turns out Emily became a complete psycho. She says the tragedy will grow if they don't deal with the enemy. Of course, Soda gets scared. Emily says that she won't let any slime get away, and Soda notices a dark aura around her. She starts smashing the floor with a menacing laugh, but luckily, she returns to normal after getting her pumpkin. Soda then makes his best decision ever to return to the second floor and get carrots instead. They start walking back to the second floor, and Soda thinks they must hurry because he doesn't want to see that version of Emily again. Emily suddenly stops walking, and Soda notices something is wrong. He looks to the floor and notices a hole where hundreds of roaches are coming out. Emily turns the psycho mode on and unleashes a stronger dark aura than before. Her last words to Soda are that he might never regain his humanity back. Soda tries to deal with the roaches by shooting them and begs Emily to let him take care of them. Emily's twisted side becomes more menacing, making him realize that he cannot miss a shot. Luckily, he manages to use 100% of his brain to concentrate and defeat the roaches. Emily returns to normal, happy to see that Soda's pumpkins are huge. The only problem is that they have too many pumpkins, and they can barely take them out. Emily turns dark mode again, saying that the bugs will spawn again. He tries to calm her down when suddenly their pumpkins get pushed away. Turns out it's Eve asking for today's carrots. Emily's sweet mode returns, and Soda thinks Eve just saved them. They take the pumpkins outside and decide to make several trips to sell them. After a few runs, Soda notices some pumpkins were eaten by animals, and he thinks that he cannot sell those. Until he sees Emily's demonic eyes again, she says the roaches are here and smashes her hammer against the floor. Roaches come out of the hole, and Soda gets confused because they're out of the dungeon. Emily gets more intense, but Soda tries to step forward and kill every roach. He shoots some of them but runs out of bullets. Emily is going crazy, so he decides to go old school by using his shoes. He manages to kill every single one of them, and Emily apologizes. She explains she turns into someone else when she sees roaches. He says that it's not her fault, and suddenly, he hears the drop item sound. He looks to the side and sees bullets on the floor. He gets confused and asks Urza about what happened. She explains that if he leaves dropped items behind where there aren't people around, then monsters will spawn. Soda remembers that Emily explained the same thing when they encountered the stray, but he forgot about it. He apologizes for making her wait for the last batch of pumpkins, but she doesn't mind. Soda gets lost in his thoughts about the possibility of forcing strays to spawn and thinks he might get more bullets. Urza is trying to invite him on a date, but since he's too focused on his thoughts, he doesn't listen to it and leaves after thanking her. He puts a carrot on the ground and hides behind a tree after some time of waiting. Something strange happens. Yes, Eve spawned to eat the carrots. Soda tries to explain what he was trying to do, but Eve ignores him. He gets annoyed and decides to try again and again because Eve ate 9 of his carrots this time. He puts a carrot on the ground and hides behind a tree. After some time of waiting, something strange happens. Yes, Eve spawned to eat the carrots. Soda tries to explain what he was trying to do, but Eve ignores him. He gets annoyed and decides to try again and again because Eve ate 9 of his carrots this time. It succeeds, and the carrot transforms into a slime. Soda shoots it, and the slime drops 10 bullets. He rushes to his drop and thinks he's the only person who gets drops from strays because of his S-rank drop rate. He suddenly gets an idea: what will happen if he tries to create a stray from the seeds that increase his stats? He returns to the Nihonium dungeon to test his idea, but there's a problem: the seed vanishes when he touches it. He thinks that he might get something from turning monsters with no drops into strays since his health is already ranked S. He thought he could carry the seeds back without them vanishing away, but he was wrong. He decides to return to Emily and work on his drops. Suddenly, a skeleton appears, and they start wrestling. Soda kicks him through the dungeon entrance, thinking it could turn into a stray, but the skeleton vanishes midair without leaving any drop. He heads back to Urza to learn more about it. She explains that monsters disappear if they leave the dungeon, otherwise, they would have strays all over the place. She also explains that monsters can also disappear if they enter another dungeon floor. Soda now thinks that he only needs to kill them outside their floor to count as a stray, and the drop becomes different, it's a bullet. The system informs that he got a freezing bullet. He decides to test it right away on a tree and watches the tree freeze inside a crystal of ice. He thinks that this bullet will allow him to have multiple uses. He gets more bullets and returns to the slime dungeon. He can now use the bullet to freeze the slimes, and Emily deals the final blow. She thinks that was amazing and asks what his skill was. He explains that he can freeze whatever he shoots, but it's hard to get those bullets, so he cannot use many of them. Emily thinks they're valuable, and Soda replies that he will use them in emergencies. They spend their whole day getting drops and return home at night. But on their way back, they find two people arguing. Soda tells them to let him pass through, but the old man tells him to pull up some cargo. Emily looks down and notices a wagon. Soda thinks he can probably do it if they find him a way to get down, but the girl tells him not to do it. She says that it's been a while since it fell, and that it should turn into a stray. The girl also explains the wagon is loaded with drops from troublesome monsters, and she plans to burn it. But the old man won't let her do it, as he cares only about his profit. While the girl is thinking about everyone's safety, the old man reveals she's fired and tries to attack her. She manages to dodge it, and they see an aura around the old man in the mask. She explains that it's a stray from the wagon, a monster called Femini, who doesn't have a body, so they possess humans. Soda thinks he can do something and tries to shoot it. Surprisingly, it works and drops some bullets. The girl tells them to take the old man and run. Soda asks what she's planning to do, and she explains the wagon is full of Femini. If they don't do something, the monsters will split and head into different directions. She plans to jump down so the monsters can possess her body. She explains that it's her responsibility because she was hired as the escort. Soda remembers the time he couldn't help his friends because he was selfish and decides to help her. He decides to reload his gun with freezing bullets and shoots the wagon. He manages to freeze the whole area, giving Emily a chance to jump down and smash everything with her hammer. The girl thanks him for saving everyone, and they return. They decide to check Emily's stats first and find out she reached level 20 in one go. They think it's because she dealt the final blow to the Femini. Emily replies that it's all thanks to Soda and mentions that more good things will happen if she stays with him. Soda tries to dismiss it, and the two realize they feel the same way. Watch this next video, see you on the next one.